The Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch. Appendix. An additional record of the story of the Great Master, the Sixth Patriarch, collected by the disciple Fa Hai and others. The Great Master was named Huineng. His father was of the Lu family and had the posthumous name Xing Tao. In the 9th month of the 3rd year of the Wu Te, or martial virtue period, 620, Lu Xing Tao was banished to Xin Chao. His mother, of the Li family, had a dream prior to bearing Huineng, and white flowers appeared in profusion in the front garden. A pair of white cranes flew by, and a strange fragrance filled the room. Realizing that she was pregnant, she maintained the chaste precepts in pure sincerity. She was pregnant for 6 years before the Master was born, which was at the first, or child hour, that is, midnight, of the 8th day of the 2nd month of the 35th year in the hexagenary calendar, the 12th year of the Chen Quan, or proper exemplification period, 638 of the Tang dynasty. At the time, a white light leaped to the sky from between the baby's eyebrows, and a fragrant pneuma wafted through the air. At dawn, 2 monks came to see him. They said to the father, "We have divined the name for the baby who was born last night. It should be Hui above and Neng below." The father said, "Why should he be named Huineng?" The monk said, "Hui, to enrich, is because he will enrich sentient beings with the Dharma. Neng, or capable, is because he is capable of performing the task of the Buddhas." Saying this, they left. It is not known where they went. The Master did not drink mother's milk, but was anointed with sweet dew by the gods at night. When he was 3, his father died and was buried next to the house. Huineng's mother maintained her will, that is, did not remarry, and brought up their son, who cut firewood to support his mother as he grew older. At age 24, Huineng heard the Diamond Sutra and had a moment of understanding. He went to Huang Mei to consult with and do obeisance to the 5th Patriarch, who appreciated his abilities, transmitted the robe and Dharma to him, and had him receive the position of Patriarch. The time was the 58th hexagenary year, the 1st year of the Lung Shou, or Dragon Fiat period, 661. Returning south, Huineng hid himself until the 8th day of the 1st month of the 13th hexagenary year, the 1st year of the Yi Feng, or Phoenix of Righteousness period, 676, when he met Dharma Master Yin Tsung. After discoursing upon the profound mystery, Yin Tsung became enlightened to the Master's doctrine. On the 15th day of the month, there was a great meeting of the fourfold congregation, and Yin Tsung gave the Master tonsure. On the 8th day of the 2nd month, various famous worthies were assembled for the bequest of the full precepts. Vinaya Master Chi Kuang of the western capital, or Chang'an, was the preceptor. Vinaya Master Hui Ching of Suchao was the officiant. Vinaya Master Tong Ying of Qingchao was the instructor. Vinaya Master Jitara of Central India was the explicant, and Tripitaka Master Mita of Western Country was the validator. The ordination platform had a stele erected by Tripitaka Master Gunabhadra of the Sangh, which said, quote, "In the future, a bodhisattva in human form will receive the precepts here." Close quote. Also, in the 1st year of the Ten Chen, or Heavenly Oversight period, 502, Tripitaka Master Prajnachandra came from Western India by boat, and planted a cutting of the Bodhi tree from India next to the platform. He also predicted, quote, 170 years from now, a bodhisattva in human form will open forth the superior vehicle under this tree and save innumerable beings. He will be the Dharma chief of the seal of the truly transmitted mind of the Buddha." Close quote. When the master came here and offered up his hair and tonsure, received the precepts, and opened forth the doctrine of the direct transmission to the fourfold congregation, it was all as had been prophesied before. It is 175 years from the 19th hexagenary year, the first year of the Tianqian period, or 502 of the Liang, until the 13th hexagenary year, the first year of the Yi Feng period, or 676 of the Tang. In the spring of the following year, the master left the assembly at Fa Tsing Su in Guangzhou and returned to Baolin Su. Yin Sung and over 1,000 people, both monks and lay people, saw him off. He went directly to Cao Qi. At the time, Vinaya Master Tong Ying of Qingzhou and several hundred students remained in Guangzhou, practicing according to the master's teachings. When the master arrived at Baolin Su in Cao Qi, he saw that the buildings were small and unable to accommodate his congregation. Wanting to enlarge the monastery, he visited the local figure Chen Ya-Xin and said, "This old monk would like to receive from you enough room for my sitting mat. May I?" Ya-Xin said, "How big is your reverence's sitting mat?" Huineng showed him the sitting mat, and Ya-Xin agreed. Huineng then spread out his mat so that it completely covered all of Cao Qi. The 4 heavenly kings appeared and sat down so as to protect the 4 directions. The present monastery grounds include the ridges of the heavenly kings, which are named on account of this. Ya-Xin said, "I know that the power of your reverence's Dharma is great, but the grave of my ancestor is also here. Some day, when you build your stupa, I beseech you to leave the grave there. I also wish to donate all of this to make it a precious domain of the Dharma forever. However, this earth is a mountain range to which come living dragons and white elephants. You may level heaven, but just do not level the earth." Later, when they built the monastery, they followed what he had said completely. The master roamed over the superior locations of mountains and water within the monastery grounds, and then rested. Monastery buildings were constructed in 13 locations, which are now called the Huakuoyuan, or flower fruit chapels. These are registered as belonging to the monastery. As to the Baolin Training Center, when Tripitaka Master Prajnachandra of the Western Country came from the Southern Ocean and was passing by the mouth of Cao Creek, or Cao Qi, he scooped up some water and drank it, realized how unusual was its beautiful fragrance, and said to his followers, "This water is no different from the water of Western India. At the source of this stream, there must certainly be a superior location suitable for a monastery." Close quote. They followed the current up to its source, which was surrounded by mountains and water on all 4 sides, with peaks and crags, strange and excellent. Prajnachandra sighed. "This is like Mount Baolin, or Ratnavana, in Western India." He said to the people living in Sao Hao village, "You should build a monastery on this mountain. 170 years from now, the unsurpassable Dharma treasure will be disseminated here. Those who attain enlightenment will be like a forest, so it would be appropriate to call it Baolin, or Treasure Grove Monastery." At the time, the governor of Xiaoqiao, Ho Ching-chong, reported what Prajnachandra had said in a memorial, and the throne granted his request and bestowed a name plaque for Baolin Su, written in the imperial hand and making the monastery a pure palace of the Dharma. It was unveiled in the 3rd year of the Tianqian period, or 504. In front of the monastery's Buddha hall was a deep pool where a dragon constantly went in and out, deforming the trees. One day he manifested a form that was extremely large, roiling up waves and obscuring the sky with clouds and mists. Huineng's followers were all afraid, but the master scolded the dragon. "You're only able to manifest a large body. You can't manifest a small body. If you were a divine dragon, your abilities at transformation would include the manifestation of the large with the small, and the manifestation of the small with the large." The dragon suddenly disappeared, and then instantly reappeared in a small body, jumping around the surface of the pool. The master held out his bowl, testing the dragon by saying, "But I'll bet you don't dare enter this old monk's bowl." The dragon then swam up in front of him, and the master scooped him up in the bowl. The dragon could not move. The master carried the bowl to the monk's hall and preached the Dharma for the dragon, who then shed his skeleton and went away. His skeleton is about 7 inches long and was complete with head and tail, horns and feet. It is kept at the monastery. The master later had the pool filled up with earth and rocks. The iron stupa that now exists in front of the hall on the left side guards the location. The rock that the master dropped from his hips when he went to Hung Jen's chambers to receive the transmission is inscribed with 8 characters that read, quote, "Recorded for layman Lu on the first year of the Lung Shuo period, or 661, close quote. This stone now exists at Tongchansu in Huangmei. In addition, Assistant Director of the Right Wang Wei composed a record of the Patriarch on behalf of the Great Master Shen Hui, which says, quote, "The Master hid among workers for 16 years. When he encountered Yin Sung's lecturing on the Nirvana Sutra, Yin Sung therefore performed the tonsure for him." Close quote. Also, Governor Liu Zhongwan composed an epitaph on the Patriarch's posthumous title, which says, quote, "The Master received the implement of authentication and hid himself in Nanhai for 16 years. When the time was right for him to undertake the salvation of sentient beings, he took up residence in Cao Qi and became the teacher of humans." Close quote. Furthermore, Grand Counselor Chang Shang-ying composed a record of the 5th Patriarch, which says, quote, "The 5th Patriarch taught at Tongchanhuan in Huangmei County, which was convenient to his support of his mother. In the first year of Lung Shuo, after bestowing the robe and Dharma on the 6th Patriarch, he dispersed his following and entered a hut on East Mountain. There was a layman named Ping Mao who gave the mountain to the master, that is, Hung Zhen, for a training center. In consideration of this evidence, we must conclude, then, that the master's journey to Huangmei and reception of the 5th Patriarch's robe and Dharma was in fact in the 58th hexagenary year, the first year of the Lung Shuo period, or 661. From this year to the 12th hexagenary year of Yi Huang, or 676, when the master first went to Fa Tsingsu and shaved his hair, is 16 years. Other texts may say that the master went to Huangmei in the Xianyang, or Universal Penetration period, 670 to 674, but I fear this is incorrect. Details of accolades through the dynasties. Emperor Xianzhong, 805 to 820 of the Tang, bestowed on Great Master the posthumous title Chan Master Great Mirror. Emperor Taizong, 976 to 997 of the Sung, supplemented this posthumous title to Chan Master Great Mirror of True Emptiness, and by edict reconstructed the master's stupa and named it Stupa of Great Peace and Benefit of the Country. Emperor Renzong, 1022 to 1063 of the Song, in the 10th year of the Jianxiang or Heavenly Sage period, 1032, welcomed the master's body, robe, and bowl into the palace for offerings. He supplemented the posthumous title to Chan Master Great Mirror of True Emptiness and Universal Enlightenment. Emperor Shenzong, 1067 to 1085 of the Sung, supplemented the posthumous title to Chan Master Great Mirror of True Emptiness and Universal Enlightenment and Perfect Wisdom. All of these details are found in the epitaph and record of Yen Shu Wan Xin. Epitaph on the bequest of the posthumous title Chan Master Great Mirror by Liu Tsung-wan. The military commissioner Ma Tsung, Lord of Fufeng, inquired in detail about the events of the 3 years in Lingnan where a Buddhist became the Sixth Patriarch. Since no title had been granted, he enumerated these details to the emperor, who, in an edict, granted the posthumous title Chan Master Great Mirror. The Sixth Patriarch stupa was called Stupa of Numinous Illumination. On the 13th day of the 10th month of the 10th year of the Wan Ho, or Original Harmony period, 815, the tally, promulgated from the Bureau of Sacrifices of the Department of State Affairs, was received by the military commissioner, who then commanded that sub-official functionaries from the Bureau receive a report on the welcoming of the tally from the city's clerks to be forwarded to the Bureau of Sacrifices. The report read, in part, quote, "So many banners and canopies, bells and drums were placed on the mountain that its size increased and the valleys were filled. 10,000 people gathered together as if to hear the gods and demons. At that time there were more than 1,000 scholars present, all of whom danced for joy in vigorous excitation, as if the Master Huineng were alive again. Then again they felt pain and cried in fond remembrance as if the Master had just died." Close quote. Therefore, I, Liu Tsung-wan, say, living beings are naturally inclined to fighting, robbing, and killing. Disaster is our fundamental lot. Obstruction and resistance the licentious flow of samsara. Thus, there is nothing better than to return to the beginning. Confucius was without great position, but in death his words have been maintained in the world. Then again, Yang Chu, Mo Ti, the Yellow Emperor, and Lao Tzu have become increasingly heterogeneous, their areas of expertise rent asunder. Last to appear was our Buddha Sakyamuni, who, reasoning, transcended and returned to the source, and who must be called the one who lived in serenity. Emperor Wu of the Liang enjoyed performing conditioned works of merit. Master Bodhidharma scolded him, and the technique of emptiness became increasingly apparent. The sixth-fold transmission arrived at Great Mirror, that is, Huineng. Initially, Great Mirror labored hard at his task of hulling rice, but when he once heard the words of Shen Xu's verse, his own words were rare and trenchant. The Master Heng Zhen's enlightened functioning responded, and at last Huineng received the implements of authentication. He hid himself in Nanhai, and no one heard of him. Then, after 16 years, the time was right for him to undertake the salvation of sentient beings, so he took up residence in Zhaoqi and became the teacher of humans. Those who assembled to study under him numbered 1,000. Huineng's way took the unconditioned as being, the empty void as the real, and the vast and unbounded as the refuge. He taught people first with essentialistic goodness, ultimately to point out that essentialistic goodness did not depend on weeding and hoeing. Fundamentally, it is serene. Emperor Chengzong heard of his fame and dispatched an emissary who invited him twice to court, but he was unable to go. The emperor took his words as the technique of the mind. His teaching is extant in its entirety and is now disseminated everywhere under heaven. All that which is called Chan has its origins at Cao Chi. Great Master, Great Mirror, departed this world 106 years ago, having extensively instilled his teaching in an extensive following. His well-known successors number a few over 10, but I cannot list their names here. Now, for the first time, the emperor has been informed of his achievements, and he has attained a great posthumous title. Bounteously, he aided our way. Could he not but receive such an accolade? When Lord Ma Tsung of Fu Feng first stood before the court, he was strong in Confucian learning. He has been governor of Guangzhou, or Kung County, Guangxi, and protector of Annan, and the great man and barbarians from India in the west have come over the ocean on their ships to hear his commands. They all accept the public virtue, receiving banners of effulgent and regulating their hailbirds. After Ma Tsung of Fu Feng arrived to overlook the southern oceans, those who have joined our country are as numerous as the trees of a forest. They do not murder, nor are they angry. The people are filled with awe and do not speak bluntly. In truth, well does the refulgence of his administrative success illuminate the virtuous Ma Tsung of Fu Feng. The brilliant procession for Great Mirror was not like that for a lord, but it is fitting that he be the elder of the people, and it is simple to make him a rock beneath the foundation of the national welfare. Your emissary proceeded there to pay respect with this accolade, which reads, Bodhidharma, advancing ceaselessly, transmitted the mind of the Buddha's sayings, and the sixfold succession was bestowed on Great Mirror for oversight. Laboring diligently in single-minded silence, he ultimately grasped the profound and wrapped himself in the implements of authentication, that is, the robe and bowl, going to his southward haven. His way at Cao Chi here bequeathed, whether combined with great or humble, its stature is not raised. The transmission, recounted in its entirety, is for the way but praise. Born with essentialistic goodness, in beings innate, crazily rushing, racing in the extreme, a myriad of modes of existence, not thinking and increasingly chaotic, not realizing and increasingly mistaken, through the Master's internal mirroring, all is attained in the fundamental. If one does not plant roots, one will not cultivate seedlings. If the one within is melded without, one will possess pure brilliance in the extreme. Emperor Chongzong enjoined that word be sent to the court. In the shadows assisting the salvation of kings, the humble person free and easy. 106 years have passed with title unrecorded, but through Lord Fu Feng the Son of Heaven was now informed. From the Secretariat was returned the practice of the Great Title, which eulogized his brilliance across the southern lands, rejuvenating his Dharma. His followers were 10,000, 100 million, despondent together, elated together. One thinks the extent of the Master's teaching derives from Lord Fu Feng, who has offered all of his experiences to the Son of Heaven. The Son of Heaven, in repose, has ordered, and the excellent Lord has virtue beauteous. Overflowing the oceans are the barbarians, overlooked by the Buddha. The Master Huineng has transmitted his teaching with benevolence, and with benevolence has Lord Fu Feng administered. With greetings resolute, let this continue forever without cease. Epitaph for Chan Master Great Mirror, along with the inscription on the Buddha's robe, both of which were compiled by Liu Yutzi. On a certain month and day in the 10th year of the Huan Ho period, or 815, An edict delivered praise on Huineng of Cao Qi, the Sixth Patriarch, bestowing the posthumous title Great Mirror. In truth, Ma Tsung, governor of Guangzhou, had enumerated the details of Huineng's career in a memorial, which was followed by the emperor. Revering the way and honoring names revert identically to the same good and do not differ in the disparate teaching, that is, Buddhism. With a single word of praise, both Chinese and barbarians are extremely moved, attaining that for which they had appealed. Lord Ma Tsung of Fufeng venerated Huineng's accomplishments and, with respect, was the first to record them for posterity, and then consulted with literati. Now, Lord Liu Zhongwan of Hotung, governor of Liu Chao, has composed an earlier epitaph. 3 years later, the monk Tao Lin led his followers here from Cao Qi, saying they wished to erect a second epitaph. This was the desire of Huineng's students. During the middle 500 years after the Tathagata's nirvana, Kasyapa, Matanga, and Chu Falan brought sutras to China, and people first heard his words. This was like seeing sunrise through layered darkness. During the next 500 years, Bodhidharma brought the Dharma to China, and people first transmitted the Buddha's mind. This was like seeing the gleaming sun on a dark morning. From Bodhidharma, the sixthfold transmission reached Great Mirror, and, like wish-bestowing pearls strung together, there was neither identity nor difference from one to the other. What is referred to in this world as the true doctrine, also known as the sudden teaching, was initially brought by Bodhidharma along with the Buddha's robe, which is transmitted by the enlightened as a seal of the truth. The robe has reached Great Mirror and will no longer be transmitted. How could it possibly be like the fish and rabbit traps, or the straw dog that are discarded after the game is caught or the ritual finished? Is it not that people simply had no choice but to do something with it and decided to let it stay at Cao Qi? I am without spiritual attainment, but have come to know the following. On the basis of Tao Lin's testimony, Chan Master Great Mirror was born in Xinqiao, left home at 34, and died at age 74. After 106 years, he received a posthumous title. Initially, it was at East Mountain in Chichao that he received the prophecy of future enlightenment from the Fifth Patriarch, then returned to the south. Emperor Chengzong sent a palace worthy who repeatedly invited Huineng to court, but he did not accept the invitation. The palace worthy then submitted Huineng's words to the throne, which reverentially put them into practice. The inscription reads, "The birth of the perfected man was unlike any other. Identical to people was his form, transcending the human was his wisdom. In this southern outskirt of civilization where insects wriggle did descend to be born one of exceptional greatness. His father, the sky, and his mother, the earth. Alone did he take his form from the primal Numa. At a single word he was suddenly enlightened without treading even the first stage of the Bodhisattva path. With the transmission from the fifth master, who bestowed the precious implements, that is, the robe and bowl, sitting in meditation at Tao Qi, the world called it the Southern School. Students came here like the inexorable flowing of water to the east. Drinking of the wondrous medicine, they heal their deafness and dumbness. Summoned but unable to proceed to court, he was allowed to become a hero of the Dharma. The time of the Buddha is remote, and his words have accumulated to 100 million. Attaching themselves to emptiness and grasping being, everyone races toward his realm, the Western Paradise. I, Huineng, have established a snare for truth, which has been triggered in this southern country. cultivating without cultivation, attaining without attainment. This teaching can cause students to return to their natural awareness. As when dark and obscure, one lifts one's eyes to the pole star, attaining it naturally. Ultimately, it cannot be transmitted by mouth and passed by hand. To hand down the robe would be to be obstructed by being. The robe is stored in the hall of emptiness. To attain it is to have it bestowed by heaven. Inscription on the robe of the Buddha, with introduction, compiled by Liu Yutzi. I have written the second epitaph for Hui Neng of Cao Chi on behalf of the monk Tao Lin, thinking that I might explain the meaning of the Sixth Patriarch not transmitting his robe. I have composed this inscription on the robe of the Buddha. When the Buddha's words are not practiced, the Buddha's robe is the subject of argumentation. Suddenly close but honoring the remote, our feelings toward ancient and contemporary are eternally the same. The birth of Confucius was in a place not even a village, but after the dream offering, his teachings have lasted for 1,000 years. As I recall, in the past there was Emperor Wu of the Liang, who was like a crazed elephant. Bodhidharma, in order to save the people of this world, came and became the medicine king. Because his words did not heal, he moved elsewhere on behalf of living things, as if holding the matching tally and returning to the barrier. When the people do not know the officials, they look on their carriages and are afraid. When lay people do not know the Buddha, they consider his robe as something to be honored. A robe of disintegrating colors. The way is not in this. It is precious because it proves the enlightenment of Hui Neng. The Sixth Patriarch was not prominent, and his origins were obscure. He returned to the wolf-infested wilds, traveling far to live among the cretinous imbeciles of the far south. If he had not the implements of authentication, how would sentient beings have taken refuge in him? This was to open the gate of expedient means, not to transmit the robe as an end in itself. What has a beginning must have an end. How could the transmission of the robe not cease? Things must revert to nothingness. How could one long rely on a robe? If prior to the end one knows the end, its use is inexhaustible. Our way is imperishable. How could it include a robe? When its use has been told, who would not consider it a straw dog to be cast aside when no longer needed? It was after the master's body was placed in the stupa on the 3rd day of the 59th hexagenary year, the 10th year of the Kaiwan period, or 722. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, there was heard a sound like the dragging of an iron chain. The monks arose in surprise and saw a person in mourning clothes running out of the stupa. Upon inspection, they saw a wound on the master's neck. They reported the entire affair at the county and prefectural headquarters to Magistrate Yang Kan and Governor Lu Wu Tian, and obtained a warrant for the urgent apprehension of the assailant. After 5 days, the bandit was captured in Shichu village and sent to Shaochao. Under interrogation, he identified himself as Chang Chin Man from Liang County in Ruzhou, Linru County, Hunan. While at the Kaiwan Su, or Opening Origin Monastery in Hongqiao, he had received 2,000 cash from the Sila monk Kim Dai-pi, Jin Taipei in Chinese, for taking the head of the Sixth Patriarch, Great Master Hui Neng, to be returned to Haidong, that is, Korea, to become the object of offerings. Governor Liu, hearing the report of the interrogation, went himself to Cao Chi prior to sentencing. He asked the master's chief disciple, Ling Chao, How should we deal with this? Ling Tao said, According to civil law, he should obviously be executed, but according to the Buddhist principle of compassion, both enemy and friend are treated equally. How much more the case since they wanted Hui Ning's head in order to make offerings to it. This transgression should be overlooked. Governor Liu sighed and said, For the first time, I understand the grandeur of Buddhism. He then pardoned the criminal. In the first year of the Shang Yuan, or uplifting the origin period, 760, Emperor Su Tseng sent an emissary to request that the master's robe and bowl be returned to the palace for offerings. On the 5th day of the 5th month of the first year of the Yong Tai, or Eternal Peace period, 765, Emperor Taizong dreamed that the Sixth Patriarch, the Great Master, requested the return of the robe and bowl. On the 7th day, an edict was sent to Governor Yang Chen, which said, We have dreamed that Chan Master Hui Ning has requested that his robe of transmission, his kasaya, be returned to Cao Qi. We now dispatch Great Defender General of the State Liu Chongqing to receive and return it reverentially. We state that it is a national treasure. Our servant should return it to its original monastery and emplace it according to the Dharma. We adamantly command the monks who have personally received the teachings of Hui Ning to guard it carefully and not allow his body to be defiled. Afterward, there were those who snuck in to steal Hui Ning's remains, but they were always captured before they got far away. Such events happened 3 or 4 times. Emperor Shenzhong bestowed the posthumous title Chan Master Great Mirror, and the stupa name, Numinous Illumination of the Original Harmony. The remaining details are recorded in the epitaphs by Minister Wang Wei, Governor Liu Zongyuan, and Governor Liu Yuxi, all of the Tang. Recorded by the Shramanera Ling Tao, who guards the stupa. Epilogue. The Dharma always preached in the past by the Sixth Patriarch, the Great Master, was entirely the perfect and sudden teaching of the Mahayana. Therefore, it is called a sutra. Its words use what is close to point to what is remote. Its phrases are straightforward, level, and its meanings clear. Whoever recites it will receive benefit thereby. Ming Chiao Chi Sung has constantly praised it, saying, quote, Those whose natural abilities are sharp will attain it profoundly. Those whose natural abilities are dull will attain it shallowly. Close quote. How true these words! When I first entered the way to become a monk, I was very moved by this scripture. Eventually, I saw that the 3 texts available were not uniform. Each has strengths and weaknesses, and the printing blocks were becoming obliterated. Therefore, I have made a comparative edition of the text, correcting their errors and elucidating their abbreviations. I have also added the requests for instruction and encounters between Hui Ning and his students. I hope that students will be able to attain the teaching of Cao Qi in its entirety through this text. For example, the governor Yuan Kung Cong Long is profoundly versed in this way. One day, he passed by my room in the monastery, perused my edition, and said, quote, You have achieved a grand consummation of the Platform Sutra. Close quote. Lamenting the text's unavailability, he commanded workers to carve the catalpa tree into printing blocks solely in order that the text would circulate and keep the school of Cao Qi from ever coming to an end. Someone said, quote, Bodhidharma did not posit words, pointed directly at the human mind, and taught seeing the nature and the achievement of Buddhahood. Why should the correct transmission to Patriarch Lu in the 6th generation, that is Hui Ning, utilize words? Close quote. I said, This sutra is not words, but the direct pointing of the unilineal transmission from Bodhidharma. Nan Yue, Huai Rong, Qing Yuan, Xing Su, and the various great elders illuminated their minds through this pointing. Furthermore, they used it to illuminate the mind of Matsu Tao Yi, Shu Tao, Su Chen, and the various masters. The Chan school, which now is disseminated throughout the world, has always depended on this pointing. From now on, how could it not rely on this pointing and still illuminate the mind for the seeing of the nature? The questioner acknowledged this, bowed again, and said in gratitude, I have been feeble-minded in asking this. Please include this exchange at the end of the sutra in order to inform those to come. Epilogue by Shi Chengpao of Nanhai, summer of the 28th hexagenary year, the 28th year of the Qi Yuan, or ultimate origin, or reaching the origin, period of the Yuan dynasty, 1291.